Uh, hey, Alfonso. Uh, Good evening. Welcome to TMI Live number 39. What did I call it? Vital speeches, etc. It's Tuesday night. It's 9 p.m. Eastern. I'm back in the building because there are books and somebody's got to catalog them. And I'm here, and it is my pleasure and honor to do that, and a little bit my duty. If this is the first time you're seeing this, every week I come in here to the library and I spend a few hours, ideally, with Eric McLuhan's books. There's about 6,000 of them. I'm currently on case 6, shelf C. I moved down a shelf. I finished shelf B yesterday. Hey, Dennis. Good to see you, man. So I'm really glad to be moving on. I've got a bunch of things I'm doing. Currently, I'm looking at an issue of Etc., which is the Journal of General Semantics Association, I think it was called, from fall of 1980. This contains, I have a few copies, an article by Marshall McLuhan and Bruce Powers called Euclidean Space to Outer Space, an informal discussion of the effects of acoustic and visual space in communications. Marshall McLuhan and Bruce Powers. So this is not a subject I know a lot about. It's something I'll have to get into at some point. Marshall McLuhan and Bruce Powers co-authored this book, The Global Village, Transformations in World Life and Media in the 21st Century. I haven't read this. It came out in 1989, a year after Eric McLuhan came out with Laws of Media, the New Science. And we haven't got to this yet. We'll talk about it more when I get to this. This is Eric McLuhan's copy of this book. And that's an awesome book. Oh, thanks, Thomas. I'm not sure Eric McLuhan agreed. There's work to be done talking about the two books here. I have a copy close to hand, but anyway, Laws of Media, which came out in 1988, The Global Village, which came out in 1989. Marshall McLuhan, of course, died at the end of 1980. So yeah, because I don't know enough about it, I'm not going to really talk to it, but somebody really should look into these two books and the story there, because there is a story. To tell you a little bit, actually, I posted on the Instagram. This book came out a little bit just before here, Reconsidering McLuhan's Message for Our Modern Moment, Anthony M. Walks, as 2015. And this looks interesting. It looks at the relationship between Laws of Media and the Trivium, I believe. Although from what I understand, the author seems to largely ignore Eric McLuhan's role in the book Laws of Media, which shouldn't be ignored, even though his is perhaps a smaller name. Anyway, I bring this up because I was flipping through it and saw this graphic here, which you saw on the cover of The Global Village. And Dad, Eric, has rather forcefully X'd that out to tell you what he thinks about that visualization, figure 1 in early visualization of the tetrad. I can tell you right now why Dad didn't like that, because Dad stressed over and over and over that the 4 laws of media are simultaneous and not sequential. And this certainly is not a diagram of simultaneity. And it's, yeah, anyway, much more to say about that eventually. Not right now. I'm sure Mr. Powers was a lovely man. Anyway, so that's etc. Let me finish cataloging that, and then we'll move on. Thank you for joining me here tonight. in this crazy night, crazy days. Rest in peace, Mr. Floyd, George. Black Lives Matter. Let's not forget that, or let's recognize that. General semantics, he says offhandedly. Listen, if I wasn't here in the country in a library doing books, I'd probably be on the streets too, I hope. 'Cause it's not right. 1980. So what I'm doing is I make a note of the bibliographic data, the publishing data of the books, and then I flip through to make sure there's no annotations or anything, because that's important. I have, and see, here we go. Here's a note here from the International Society for General Semantics, November 19th, 1980. Dear Professor McLuhan, under separate cover, we are mailing to you 10 copies of the fall issue of Etc. with your article, Euclidean Space to Outer Space, an informal discussion of the effects of acoustic and visual space in communications. Sincerely, Lena M. Batista, Office Manager, ISGS. It was a McLuhan habit to make sure you got several copies of something. In fact, that was something Eric always did a little bit earlier tonight. This was on the shelf as well. James K.M., who with his wife Carol Sill are friends of the McLuhan Institute, members of this page, and I think supporters on Patreon, Carol. James is a visual artist, Vancouver in Vancouver, BC, and this is a catalog from his exhibition, Cave Paintings 2008, which has a little article by Dad, Cave Paintings, ? By Eric McLuhan. And it includes this note from the director or curator of this. Hello, Eric. Enclosed, please find 6 copies of the James K.M. book for your files. James seems happy with it, and if he is, I am as well. Which is funny. Yeah, thinking about you a lot, Serene. Kate. Hey, Kate. Anyway, this essay on by Eric McLuhan is really interesting. I'm going to read a little bit about it because I've been thinking a lot about masks. And Eric writes, 2008, Hypocrite lecteur, mon semblable, mon frère, exclaimed Baudelaire. Mask-wearing reader. The art is a vortex of energies to be used to correct perception. The reader puts on the mask of the author's work as a way of seeing, even as the author puts on the public as a mask. One serves to probe the other. Both are cliches. Corrective lenses, hearing aids, prosthetic devices. Baudelaire proclaims 2-stage to the process. And then follows 2 paragraphs which Eric excerpted from this piece, which I happen to have handy because I've been reading through it as well, which is from the Journal of Communication in 1974. At the moment of, it's a crazy title, at the moment of Sputnik, the planet became a global theater in which there are no spectators, but only actors. This is very important, and I'm going to digress and get into this for a second. It's part of a larger, if you've been paying attention, you'll know that I'm obsessed with the medium as the message. At least I've taken it on as my main project for the McLuhan Institute, at least for now. And as a very interesting thing, if you've been paying attention, we've also discovered that Marshall first said the medium is the message May 5th or 6th, 1958. And what's interesting about this, about Sputnik, Marshall says here and everywhere else, keep in mind, this is 1973, okay? Perhaps the largest conceivable revolution in information occurred on October 17th, 1957, when Sputnik created a new environment for the planet. For the first time, the natural world was completely enclosed in a man-made container. At the moment that the Earth went inside this new artifact, nature ended and ecology was born, capital E. Ecological thinking became inevitable as soon as the planet moved up into the status of a work of art. 6 months later, Marshall declared to the world in Vancouver, BC, that the medium is the message, which is an ecological statement. So I don't know if Marshall is connecting the dots for us or inviting us to connect the dots, but you could say, I will argue that Sputnik was the ultimate inspiration for the medium as the message. So, Russia, possibly the USSR, had in a hand in the medium as the message and should be listed as an influence. When people talk about influences Marshall McLuhan, they depending on who you are, you'll say Innes, or you'll say Carpenter, or you'll say Richards and Leavis, or you'll say, who knows who you'll say, Joyce. I'm going to start saying Sputnik, because here in Marshall's own words, Sputnik. At the moment of Sputnik, the planet became a global theater. He's also saying here he's ending the global village, which he borrowed from Wyndham Lewis in America in Cosmic Man. Cosmic Man, Sputnik. There's another association. Anyway, this was the point at which, in the early 70s here, I think, Marshall stopped talking about the global village and started talking about the global theater as how to consider the environment created by satellites and television and etc. So yeah, that's interesting. That's something I'm working on, a little explanation of that. The last thing I was going to mention here was vital speeches. This was a big honor for Dad. This is on the shelf, and I'm cataloging this, which is why it comes up. Dad had one of his speeches included in this August 2009 volume 52 75, volume 75, number 8. Well, vital speeches of the day. A speech by Eric McLuhan, Literacy in a New Key. Where did he give that exactly? Adjusting to a changing media. Oh, right. It was delivered at the 10th Annual Convention of the Media Ecology Association, St. Louis University, June 18th, 2009. I was there. Actually, that was one of the first trips I took with Dad, and I got to see St. Louis. This came about through a friend of Dad's. Anyway, it got included in this, which was a real honor because no less a person than Barack Obama is featured in this, which is kind of something. Barack Obama. Anyway, I'm going to leave you there for tonight and keep doing my thing. I wish you all the best. Be safe out there. Love you guys.